Hello, hello. Hi everyone. Welcome to another live stream. Thank you for joining me this evening. Alrighty, I hope whenever you are viewing this email, I'm sorry, not email. As you can see, I'm still in my work attire and I'm thinking about, subconsciously, I'm thinking about work, right? But I hope whenever you're viewing this, if it's now, good evening. If it's on the replay, good afternoon, good morning, whenever, good night. But I hope that your day is going well or your day went well. And I hope that, well, I know that when you view this, you're going to find something to take away from it, right? You're going to find something to take away. So good evening and welcome. My name is Waveney and I am a leadership coach. I am a leadership mindset coach. And I am sharing with you this week about the services that I am offering. But before I do that, I'd like to share with you sort of the why behind them. And the way I'm going to be doing this is by really doing a little bit of teaching at first, and then I will introduce my offer. I will introduce the programs that I have that can support what I'm talking about. And so if you missed me last evening while I was here, please go back and view the live stream. It will give you an idea about who I am, what I do, why I do what I do. But overall, it is to equip you to be a better leader. All right, and so let us get into it. And so this evening my topic is the map is not the territory. The map is not the territory. And that is not, I can't take credit for it, because this saying, this topic, is really a presupposition. It's what you call a presupposition from what we call NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming. Now bear with me, I'm geeking out a bit. So it's a presupposition, and really what it means, if you think about it, the map is not the territory. A map gives you an overall, it gives you a general guideline about what to expect, but it doesn't give you the whole details. And so what it really means is that our perception of the world is different, right, than the actual world. Our perception of an event in actuality is different because it's our perception. And so the map is not the territory. And if you think about it, a map doesn't tell you where a ditch is. Well, that is, if you go on Google Maps, it'll probably have everything, right? But a map, generally speaking, doesn't help you to become aware of the details of an area. Okay, and that is really the idea behind the map is not the territory. And isn't this true for being a leader, right? Isn't this really true for being a leader? Because we get into leadership, we get into management, we want that job, and we are not prepared. What we think it is, it's something totally different. The things that we think that we'd be able to execute quickly, we're not able to do that. The map is not the territory. And so we think that being a leader is easy, right? We think it's easy. Many times you would hear people say, well, if I was in that position, I would do this. If I was that, I would do that. And everybody always knows what they would have done had they been in your shoes. And isn't it true in our personal lives, right? Or isn't it true when a situation happens that people are saying, well, they should have done this and they should have done that? And I can tell you from being in HR and being a senior leader for many years that what actually happens, the information that you have, you sometimes have to be guided accordingly. And so when we think about it in context of leadership, we think that it's going to be easy, that when we get into leadership, that people are just going to follow us because of our position. People are just going to follow us because of our title. That when we get that promotion, we sign the dotted line, that we show up at our new job or in our new role, that automatically that everything is gonna be okay. My lighting seems to be off on Instagram. I don't even know why. I just need to get it right someday. Anyway, we automatically think that people are going to respect us, they're going to follow us, and that sort of thing. And I can tell you that it doesn't work that way. I can tell you it doesn't work that way. And I can tell you that even if you are a leader if you live on a Caribbean island such as me, like me, I can tell you have to work twice as hard. You have to, people just don't respect you like that, right? Because they know you either growing up, or they know your family, or you're some kind of distant cousin, and it is very difficult, right? It is very difficult. Anybody that grew up in a small village or a small town or on a Caribbean island can tell you that it's very difficult being a leader in that sort of environment, put on the fact that you have other, like, your leadership stuff to do, by virtue of the fact that people know you are, they're familiar with you. It makes it a little bit difficult. And so I know, like I mentioned last night, I've been where you are at, and this is one of the reasons why I pivoted to leadership. This is one of the reasons why I decided to focus on new managers, because I could remember I had a friend and she was being offered a role. I would never forget it. And she was scared out of her mind. She was scared because, hey, it's a manager. She didn't know what to do. She didn't, she was great at the job that she was doing, but she didn't know what to do. She didn't know all the things. And I remember saying to her, because I was already in a leadership role, and I said to her, take the job, I will help you. Because I'd previously been in that role. I said, take the job, I will help you. And I remember her comparing herself to other people, and I'm like, take the job. And she was a female, of course, and so many times, even as, and I'm going to pull the gender card into this, even as females, we tend to doubt ourselves, right? We tend to doubt ourselves. We tend to wonder if we can really do this thing. We are competent. We are great at what we do. We have a growth mindset. We are agile, but yet we still doubt if we could do the thing. And this is something that happens to us all the time. I remember when I first went into my role as a director, I was calling my boss, right? She was not the one who promoted me, but I was reaching out to her all the time because I didn't know, and I wanted to prove myself. And so the map is not the territory. What we think the job is, it's totally different from what it is. I mean, we might have some idea, but we don't have all the information, right? And this is something that we don't realize. And here's some things that we don't realize that comes with leadership. We don't realize how to actually lead people. We don't even know what that means. We don't know how to lead people. I mean, you go from maybe being a supervisor, or in my case, I wasn't even a supervisor, right? I was a coordinator, and I went from doing that straight into management. And for a while, I was a manager in title, but I didn't really actually had staff to manage. And so that is even totally different, because when you do have people to manage, it's a whole kettle of fish, right? So we don't know when we get into the role, how do we actually lead people? What is that about? What do we do? And this is a dilemma that so many managers have. Like I said, it's so easy to sit on the outskirts, to sit on the outside and say, hey, if I were in your role, I would do this, that, and the other. But when you get there, it's totally different. We don't actually realize how to deal with difficult people. We don't know how to deal with difficult people, and people in this category could be our bosses. We don't know how to deal with bosses who are jealous of us, or who they just seem difficult, right? Our coworkers, our peers. We may be getting along for the time being, but all of a sudden we're in this role and we don't know, because the expectation is different, right? We don't know how to deal with peers, right? We don't know. Sometimes we have peers that we're in a particular role, we have to do a particular thing, but because we're not their bosses, they don't want to listen to us. I know that has certainly happened to me a lot, being in HR, right? I'm not in charge, but I do have some say. But there are some people that, like, you're not my boss, right? How do you manage that? How do you manage that? And that was something really new for me. Like I mentioned to you before, I have walked this path. I have walked this path, and I'm here to support and help you. We don't realize, again, the map is not the territory. The map is not the territory. How to succeed. And even when this thought just popped into my mind, right? Because even if you have been to a management school, or hospitality school, or whatever management school that you've been to, and they give you all this theoretical stuff, right? They give you all this theoretical stuff, but nothing beats experience. There's some things that you're never going to learn until you're sitting in that role. There's some things that you're never going to learn until you raise your hand and say, hey, I want to do this project, right? And so the map is not the territory. So how do you succeed, right? This is another thing that new managers, this is another question. How do I win? What does success look like? Because success looks different. Before you get into management, you control your job, right? You control the output, you control your results. You may have had to depend on another department, depend on another person, but for the most part, you control your results. But now you're in a leadership role, you are responsible for the results. So what does success look like? Many leaders, because they don't know what they don't know, or because they're clueless, right? Or they want to remain that way, and I don't mean that in a harsh way. They want to compete. This is where the competition, if you've ever had a boss that competes with you, this is where the competition comes in as a leader. Because how are you competing against your own team, right? How are you taking all the credit when the team is the one that gets the results? When you see leaders operating like this, they are misguided, and they're not aware, right, of their role. And so how do you succeed? What does winning look like? How do you leave your mark? Because you're not there to fail. So how do you do all that? How do you deal with conflict? This is huge. How do you deal with conflict? How do you deal with conflict? And how do you see conflict? What is your perception of conflict? Many people think that conflict is a bad thing because they think of all the negative stuff that comes from that. Conflict is not necessarily a bad thing. It is not a bad thing. sometimes to get to the root of the issue, you need to talk things out. Sometimes to get to the root of the issue, things need to happen. And what I've come to learn is that you don't grow when things are comfortable. If you go to work every day and everything is okay, you're not growing, you're not learning, nothing is happening. It is when things are difficult, it's when you have that push and pull, it's when you have that resistance, that is when you learn. I know that most of my learnings have come from being in difficult situations, dealing with difficult situations. And I walk away learning more and more, learning more about myself, learning more how to better deal with situations of that nature. It's a learning all around. So if you are comfortable, you never learn. Okay, the map is not the territory. I'm going to repeat saying that. Another thing that new managers often want to know is how to be better, right? How to be better. And many times we get in leadership roles and we swear, we make a commitment, and we decide that we are not going to be like that leader that we had, right? That horrible manager like that we had. We swear that we are not going to be that way, and sometimes we end up being that way because we don't have the tools to do that. So how do we not end up like the person that we don't want to be like, right? How do we not take things personally? How not to take things personally? These are things that new managers wonder about. What about communication? This is a huge one. And communication, I will tell you, it's a work in progress. You're going to get better because there are different levels, there are different ways, there are different modes of communicating. Sometimes communicating as a new leader might look like, how do I get up in front of a group and deliver a presentation? That's one way to communicate. Could also mean, how do I communicate with my team? What does that look like? How do I communicate with my boss? There's something that's called managing up. I've spoken about this here. How do I manage up? But all these are forms of communication. How do I communicate to my team? Because there's a different way. How do I get more professional? How do I communicate, right? How do I even know what I need to know? This is a huge one. How do I know what I even need to know? And this is a huge question because you get into, no schooling is going to teach you that. You may have an orientation, you may have some expectations given to you, but all these things that I've mentioned, the map is not the territory. Like, being in the role is different. And the other thing that people don't realize is that everything is contextual, right? All business places are not created equal. Like, sometimes I speak to people, friends of mine that work in the government, okay? I could never work for the government. And the reason being is that sometimes they're in leadership roles and they cannot hold people accountable, right? I've heard so many stories. They can't hold people accountable. And holding people accountable doesn't mean that you are terminating them, that you're firing them, or sometimes it doesn't even mean that you're documenting them, but even to have a conversation, even to address certain things, how do you deal with that, right? So each business place and each organization and where you work is very contextual. It's not a one-size-fits-all. And again, the map is not the territory, which is why I decided to create my flagship, my signature coaching program is called Communicate to Influence, because I recognized two things. That earlier on in my career, I recognized that one of the ways to be successful, right? And I actually have added a third. To be successful, You can be the most talented, you can be competent, but unless you really work on your communication with others, with yourself, with your team, with your boss, with whomever, within your sphere of influence, as I call it, you're not going to succeed. And the other component too is working on your work relationships. Work relationships are critical. Your boss, your team, your peers, people upward, senior people in the organization. All of these are important. So I recognize that work relationships and communication are the two critical things that if you work on them, you're going to be successful. It will set you apart as an influential leader. And I want to add a third, which I've added a third, and it's so funny because the very first module of my coaching program is called A Leader's Mindset. Even before I started delving really deeply into mindset, I recognized that mindset was important, because you cannot succeed without mindset. You cannot be in leadership, you can't be successful as a leader without a change in mindset. And I know certainly for me, I've had to change my mindset so many times. I've had to challenge my beliefs. I've had to challenge what I think was the right thing. And I'll tell you, coming out of COVID, people are no longer staying in workplaces that are toxic, and people don't want to work for people that they don't feel comfortable with and around. And I really truly believe you get the best out of people when you can really lean into influential leadership. You get the best out of people when you take a people's first philosophy. And these three things are so important: mindset, communication, and work relationships. Three key things. There are other things, but these are the things that I choose to focus on because I've seen them work in my life. I've seen results from them, and I can't teach you something that I don't get results from, right? I have to teach you the formula that works. And many of you have heard me say, I usually ask people, I don't have a degree, right? I've never been to a university. I didn't have that opportunity. Wanted to have that opportunity, didn't. Then, so how was I successful? It's not by talent alone, right? It's not by talent alone, because if I were to ask myself, I don't think that I am more talented than anybody else, right? But it's the human connection. And this is why the People's brand, the tagline is connecting, inspiring, influencing. All right. And so this is why I created now the Communicate to Influence. So my Communicate to Influence coaching program is my signature coaching program. This is a program that I work with you for 12 weeks. I suppose I could have made it shorter, but when I think about if I were a new manager, if I were to start all over again, I would want someone with me every step of the way. Just like when I told you a moment ago, when I became a director, I was messaging my former boss, I was asking her this, I was asking her the other, I would bounce things off her. I still, because at the time of this video, many of you know that I am in my 9-to-5, and I still reach out to her because she's been a director for like years, right? She has so many years under her belt, but I still reach out to her. And so 12 weeks. So I decided to create this program, make it 12 weeks, so I could really spend time with the person in the program. And for now, it's not a group program. I don't know if I'll ever convert it into a group program, but for now we work together one-on-one, because I recognize, again, like I said, each workplace is different. It's very contextual, right? Each organization is different. There are nuances, there are different things about it. And so I wanted to dedicate that time to that person who invested in themselves. So it's a 12-week program, and it's what I would call a hybrid program. So there's a portal that there are videos there are modules there. I'll read with you, I'll read to you what the modules are. So it's 12 weeks, and I spend time coaching and guiding and mentoring, and there are 12 modules, right? There are 12 modules, and the first one is a leader's mindset. It's a mindset, because you have to make that mindset shift. And this is one of the huge problems that people make when they get into leadership roles. They don't make that shift. As a matter of fact, it's a huge problem. If you are leveling up in any area of your life, you have to make that switch. If you're moving from an apartment or from a rented house into your own house, you have to make a switch. You have to make that mindset switch, right? Because if you're renting, the house insurance is probably taken care of by somebody else. Certain things are taken care of by somebody else. But if you're a homeowner, the mindset has to be different. You have to be thinking differently, right? And so it's the same thing. If in anything, if you're single, right? And when you're single, you can do what you want. You maybe come home, you leave your shoes wherever. You may not wanna, maybe you wash and you have your clean clothes and you have them in the chair or in another bedroom, and they're there, and you're like, I really need to fold them up. But if you're like, if you have a partner, if you're married, like the mindset is different, right? The mindset is different. Maybe when you're single, if you don't feel like cooking dinner, you just don't cook dinner. If you're married, if you have kids, you have to think about the other person, right? You have to think about your kids, right? But the mindset is different. So mindset is huge. So the first module is a leader's mindset. The second one is from I to B, because this is something that people do. They get into leadership roles and they think it's about them. They're still thinking that I am responsible for my results. And this is where, like I mentioned previously, that you might have your boss competing with you. It's about them. It's not about you as a leader. It's not about you. It's about your team, right? And so second module, and I was intentional with them. I was intentional when I was creating this program, because I'm like, what do they need to know? What would I have liked to learn? What did I learn the hard way? So from I to we, then we talk about your communication style, because that is going to impact everything else, right? I had to set the stage first, because I couldn't start you off with communication style. I had to set the stage. I had to set the stage as to what is the expectation, what is expected of you. And then module 4 is influential leadership. How do you actually influence? And leadership is really about behaviors. Leadership is a set of behavior. When you hear people talking about bad leaders, they're usually almost always talking about the person's behavior. And then, of course, during the course of leadership, you're gonna need to have critical conversations. And so module 5 is critical conversations. And then number 6 is sustaining success. I am one of these coaches. I don't want you to be, I want to teach you how to win on your own. You should not be dependent on me forever and ever. Amen. And so number 6 is sustaining success. And this is the Communicate to Influence coaching program for 12 weeks. And what I actually do, if you are interested, you need to get on a consultation call with me. And the reason for this is, many people hear me talk about it and it seems as though it is something that would benefit them, but maybe they're not in a leadership role, right? And if you're not in a leadership role, it probably wouldn't benefit you, but I've got something for you. I've got something for you. So I've got something for everybody. But who can benefit from this? People who are new to leadership, people who have been in leadership for a while. Maybe you didn't have any formal training. Maybe you want to brush up on your skills. Maybe you're transitioning, right? Maybe you are in a leadership position but you don't really manage people. Or maybe you're like my client. I had a client and she was working in an environment where it's very process driven. It was black or white, so there wasn't much managing. Even though she was in charge, it wasn't so much, it was very black and white. It was very process driven, so there weren't a lot of gray areas. And so during the pandemic, she reached out, and that's how she became my client, and that helped her so much. That helped her so much. So schedule a consultation call and we get on the phone. I will also, during the consultation call, I will also show you and give you a walkthrough of what the program looks like. I log into the portal and I actually show you what it looks like. So it's a hybrid program. There's a portal, there are videos, there are modules, there's homework, and then there's also coaching calls with me, because I don't leave you alone, right? This journey we take together, so I can get you from being an unsure manager to an influential leader. And I can tell you, once you have this foundation, you'll take it with you for the rest of your life. In module, I forgot to mention, in module 2, where I said where it is from I to we, I also give you things that you need to focus on. You need to understand how you win, right? This is something that new managers often wonder. How do I win? How do I make an impact? How you make an impact, I give you that information in module 2. And this is something that's foundational. This is something that you can go from. If you leave one job, you go into a next role. These are things that if you look for, if you master, you look for low-hanging fruit in those areas, you're going to be a superstar. You are going to be a superstar. And so I created this program specially for my managers who want to succeed, who want to win, who want to leave a legacy. Because I believe that you didn't just get into management because you just wanted the money, right? You didn't. Otherwise you wouldn't be following the people's brand. You got into management because you wanted to leave a mark. You wanted to make you wanted to do a really good job. You wanted to leave an impression. You want to leave a legacy. And I want to help you to do that. So if this sounds like something that you would be interested in, I will leave the link below so we can get on a consultation call. You can schedule it. I'll put my scheduling calendar below. I'll put my calendar below so you can schedule, and we can walk you through it. The consultation call is like what, 20 minutes? It's like 20 minutes. A consultation call is just that, and it's complimentary. And so we go through that and we talk about your unique what are your areas. There's an intake form, there's all of that, and at the end of it you walk away with some knowledge. All right. And so I wanted to share that with you, because the map is not the territory, and I'm here to help you navigate that new territory. And so thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining me. If you're just joining me, sorry you missed it. You can catch the replay. I will be posting this on Facebook, Instagram, and on YouTube. And if you have a work bestie that can benefit, share it. Tomorrow I will be speaking about another offering that I have, and at first, as usual, I'm going to start with a little teaching. And if you are someone who if you're not yet a manager, if you're not yet in a management role, but you want to be in a management role, you want to elevate, then tomorrow is for you, because I do have something for you. All right. Thank you for joining me, and I will catch you tomorrow, same time at 6:30. Bye.